Hey buddies, this is a far from subtle final thoughts on Ocarina of Time 3D, or just Ocarina of Time. No, it's on Ocarina of Time 3D, because I specifically throughout the entire playthrough commented upon how awesome the graphics looked in Ocarina of Time 3D compared to screenshots and videos that I'd seen of Ocarina of Time. If you are, I probably don't have to convince you much if you are a fan of Ocarina of Time and you have a 3DS, you should really give a replay on Ocarina of Time 3D. I've never played through Ocarina of Time on the Nintendo 64, but like I said, the comparison shots just look like night and day. Ocarina of Time 3D is beautiful, and in 3D, it is actually not that bad in short stints. But that's not how I played it on the show the full way through. It was a fun game, short in comparison to Skyward Sword. Coming off Skyward Sword, it definitely felt like, I guess, a mercifully short game, although during Skyward Sword there was no point where I was going, when's this going to be done, or anything like that. Zelda games are just incredible adventures that I don't think that you often feel that way, unless you're in a particularly difficult dungeon. And on that topic, if you didn't watch this, the Water Temple, the Nintendo did a great job of going back and realizing their mistakes and their gameplay choices, the user experience, and correcting some of the problems. Water Temple, I guess, has always been notoriously known as being difficult, and not in a good, difficult, or challenging way, but in just a tedious, confusing mess type of way. And they simply went in and added color coding basically to it, and some trails and pipes kind of that just sort of indicate what is what. And I can't even imagine having done that dungeon without that sort of stuff. Other improvements they made was just higher texture resolutions, better detailed models, everything up to the bridge that goes over the moat to get to Ganon's. Spoilers in here if you didn't know. These Final Thoughts videos will always have spoilers in them for the game that I'm talking about. Bridge that goes over to the castle, that light bridge apparently looks like 100 times better. And they paid due care and love to the game, and even the glitches that people have come to know and love. If the glitches weren't game breaking, or if they didn't ruin the experience, they left them in. Simple things like being able to side jump off of a tower and land on a roof or on that little fence in the Kakiro village, and being able to backflip off of the Goron's mountain and into an area that you wouldn't usually be able to get a heart early, stuff like that, that they left in. So there was that, and what else did they... I don't think that they left anything else antiquated in. What they did do was take away the indicator, the little menu, basically anything on screen, and they put it down onto your second screen, which is a huge benefit as well, and a great use of the second screen to clear up your viewing of everything else. The bad thing on the show was that you guys couldn't see my hearts the whole time, but I mean, that can't be blamed for Nintendo. I could have put it up there, but it would have slowed down the frame rate, and I didn't want to do that. So, did the game live up to its legacy in my mind? It's not my favorite Zelda. My favorite Zelda at this point is Skyward Sword. I think Skyward Sword, especially value-wise, just an insanely long but enjoyable all the way through game. And some people said they felt like it was too long and too repetitive. I didn't feel that at all, Skyward Sword, but I think that the story and the characters especially in Skyward Sword just appealed to me more, especially guys like Groose. The animations in their faces, they just felt more like people. I felt like Skyloft itself felt more like a real town than Hyrule Castle Town did in Ocarina. I think that Nintendo's just come a long way in kind of creating an atmosphere in their games. Not to say Ocarina of Time didn't have a great atmosphere, but I can totally see how Ocarina of Time has gotten its place in history, especially when you compare it to its peers at the time. like we said on our last segment of our playthrough, it was a defining game of the generation. It stands alone as something that was truly special at the time. Kind of like, I tried to come up with other games that did that at the time. Metal Gear Solid was one that really, I feel like, broke boundaries and made people realize what gaming could be in the next generation. But Ocarina of Time is, I guess, a hallmark in the progression of gaming to what it is in modern times. It's aged so well, especially once you update the graphics, because that was its Achilles heel, in my opinion. Whenever I looked back on Ocarina of Time, I saw those polygons, and I say this when I look back on Final Fantasy VII as well. I just can't get past them. I would rather have pixels than polygons that don't show any detail. Things look too boxy or like balls, and it really takes me out of it. So, like, when I look back on old Ocarina of Time Link, he just looks like a ferret to me. Like, the way his face comes to like this point. I know I'm exaggerating, but almost like a spy versus spy point. And that's just because they had to reduce the number of vertices so that the 64 could handle it. But again, like, that didn't change the gameplay. If you could, and I'm sure once you're playing, you don't see that nearly as much. So, with rose-colored nostalgia glasses, I can see how Ocarina of Time continues to be on the top of the best games of all time. But I think that you'd be kind of, I don't want to say your opinion's wrong, but I feel like if people could truly objectively take those glasses off, I think that it's not. I think that Skyward Sword did beat it out, and possibly even Wind Waker. But wait, I haven't played Wind Waker in forever. But anyways, this is just like, it's fun when you're a nerd to talk about the greatest of all time in a list of great games. But they're definitely close together in terms of how good they are. How long was our playthrough? I think it was like 30 hours. So yeah, like half the time of Skyward Sword. This is just a comparison video, I guess, because those are the only two 3D Zeldas I've really played all the way to completion. Skyward Sword and Ocarina of Time. I know that we need to play Majora's Mask now. At some point we will. I hear that it can be quite quick if you don't get everything in it, if you don't go around obsessively collecting everything. Maybe we'll do that then. But I think that the next thing on our agenda is Wind Waker HD, because it's coming out in HD on the Wii U, and everybody's going to be excited about that. And I think that if anything could knock down Skyward Sword, it might be Wind Waker, just because I've said this before. I think that the style is going to get it a few extra bonus points for me, just because it's so stylized and kind of stands out as something completely different from Nintendo and the franchise. But again, I think that the first time I played Wind Waker, I only got about to 75% through, so I can't really remember everything that happened in it at all, not even close. So I'm not going to give any judgment on that at this point. Anything else? Ocarina of Time, it had a good story. I understand that it is like the branching point for many different timelines in Zelda. I still am pretty steadfast in my belief that Nintendo barely knew what they were doing in terms of a timeline at that time. I think that a lot of it is retconned. There is no explanation really in the game about how all that works. I'm not sure if I like the ending because it has no explanation. You have to just... If you were playing Ocarina of Time at the time that it was released without knowing Majora's Mask was even coming, I feel like the ending would feel a little wishy-washy, because you defeat Ganon, and then Zelda says, I'm going to send you back now. You've defeated Ganon. So now, I guess she was able to, because I defeated Ganon, I was able to get Zelda free, right? But she was free the whole time. Why didn't she just send me back from the very beginning? Well, now I don't even know why she didn't do that. There must have been a reason. I must have had to defeat Ganon for her to be able to send me back in time. But then she sends you back in time to before Ganon takes her away from the castle, and you go into that courtyard and you meet up with her. I also don't understand why No, I do understand that. Never mind. So you go in, that takes you back to you going into the courtyard, and she's looking through the window at Ganon, and I guess that's where a timeline split happens, because there's an alternate history where Link, knowing that he's a bad man, can try to defeat him right there, or like get him arrested or something, so that I don't know, timelines. There's been too many of these types of games lately. But anyways, if you don't know that there's any timeline branching, and you wouldn't really know this, especially as a kid at the time, it's going to be really confusing. Just like, I don't understand. Oh well, it was fun. I know I'm going to get a lot of hate on this, because there's a lot of people who've studied this shit out the timeline like crazy, and well, I didn't, and I don't really care anyways. A Zelda game's a Zelda game. I'd really rather almost think of them, each of them, as standalone experiences. I think that they're more enjoyable that way anyways. And I know that people disagree with me on this, but I think from the very beginning there was no plan or intention to tie them together, and that all of this tying together now is just kind of being done retroactively. And through happy coincidences in the writing, they've been able to tie some of them together very loosely. But there are, I've been told, and I have found a few myself, lots of loose ends that aren't properly explained if you try to tie them all together. But that's what the whole comment section is going to be about now. See, why do I do this? Now the whole thing's about controversy and not about the positive part of the discussion that I started the vlog with. Whatever. I'm new at this. It's my first day. So Wind Waker HD next. Ocarina of Time. Awesome game. I loved it. I had a lot of fun. But I'm also looking forward to the next Zelda game, which I hope that maybe they will announce at E3. I know that they've announced a sequel to Link to the Past, but they have already announced that it's coming, but they just haven't shown anything. I would love it if at E3 they showed something for the next Zelda. A teaser, at least. Some sort of video, something I can play on my show. Okay, that was your Far From Subtle final thoughts. Hope I didn't make too many mistakes. I'm sure I did. I love you guys.